Okay, so what Doug would like you to do is, if you're working on something in the CES shared admissions domain, that we go to that Google Doc that shows the domain objects, like the scatter gather, the SNS thing, and the cacher, and all of that block diagram. I want you to go to that block diagram and show us what you're talking about inside there.
Okay, where is that block diagram?
So you should, it's on Google Drive.
Oh, it's the drive. I'm on Drive. Maybe I should record it in my Drive. Something like that. Okay, if I
You may not have shared it
I'm gonna record.
Okay. Another thing. Not that one. So since John is gone and Scott has moved to new projects and different stuff, I've taken over both what they were working on, the persons and the identities APIs. Meaning I am supposedly now the master of the swaggers for both of those, as well as the node code. As far as I understand and know, pretty much all of the code for the persons API is working right now and functioning. I don't know of anything that needs to be added at the moment. I think there's a couple table changes I need to do. But essentially, I'm working on building that code, and right now in identities, there are several that are under construction still or not built yet, such as this one. And so, like, these are just the basic RESTful functions for these different. And right now, I've been working on groups administered. So the last bit, I've built the get function for it, and it seems to be working now, and I've built down here the delete and the options as well, and I was starting to work on a put, but now I've hit some confusion on just the business logic for groups administered and groups in general, and so I need to talk to Steve about that when he gets back. So I'm gonna have to put pause on this one for now, but then I will have to jump into some of the others and pretty much.
So are you blocked until Steve comes back?
Not completely, no.
Okay.
On that particular field, yes. And I've also upgraded and done some other tweaks onto that audit process I built over the last year.
Oh yeah.
And I got that running faster, and I got that moving now to every hour. But I found more garbage into that is coming to the tables, and so I've got to talk to Steve about that as well. So I've got a list of things for Steve when he gets back. But I can now, while I'm waiting on that, jump into a different one of the resources. Which one is it? I don't even know. Who has this one? So this shows basically no, back and forward. All of the endpoints for the identities.
Yeah.
And so like I said, I was working on groups administered, but I'm stuck on the put right now. Oh, I can't put in the date for the delete because, well, I haven't put in the verify yet because I still need to create some run scope tests to do that, but I was going to create the put before I did delete tests so I can put back what I delete.
Okay.
So I'm working on that part. And so as for now, waiting, I can jump to a different one and at least get a get working for, or in the options and stuff, working for either group memberships or some of these others that aren't here. I'm not sure which one to jump into yet, but
okay.
It's essentially what I'm working on. I don't know if people want specific like instruction on the node code used in that or not, but that's what I'm working on presently.
Okay.
What do you guys have to share? Do you guys have, cause you shared it yesterday, right? Do you have some stuff, David?
Not particularly. I could just share a bit of something I'm working on, what little I've learned.
Well, that's the whole point, is to share what you've learned since our last meeting. So,
You could maybe walk through just a little bit, like, your thought process or how you've been able to do it, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. I guess I could explain just the general directory of these as well. So, if you look to this side here, this is in BYU API. I'm basically taking over this folder here and this directory, persons and identities. I leave person just because it's a completed one, but and so you open that up and there's essentially another directory for each sub-resource. But you see within this persons folder, there is like the primary index.js for that entire, for the entire persons directory, and it essentially is where the functions start for those endpoints. So I'm getting something from the persons API.
now where is this? This is on GitHub, right?
Yeah, this is GitHub. This is the API repo sandbox, BYU API node, BYU API,
Great.
and that's where all the directories are for those different APIs. And then in persons, the persons API would have all of these sub-resources. And then it has its main index.js. So everything kind of starts and goes through this. And you can see organized in this index file for pretty much every method they have. There's a get here, and any get, whether it is just for a person's basic info or if it's for any of the sub-resources, it starts and goes through here. And so it comes in, and you just kind of follow the code and you can see where it goes. I haven't gone through this part for a while, but it'll check to see if there's a sub-resource name. And if there is, it'll then call the get within that sub-resource. With the APIs, there's also like the field sets or the context,
Yeah.
which would allow you to return, not just basic, but in one request give you the phones, the family phones, and like the addresses for that individual. It's this set of code that would identify those requests and then send those requests to each of those sub-resources, get that info and compile it together into a single JSON object, and that would be sent back. So this is like kind of the more scary, longer, complicated looking code. And all this right here, you can see if they have, you can query based off of different parameters. I can query off of, I want to see the person by this net ID, or anyone who has this home state code. Depending however you query, this builds dynamically a SQL request to get that information. So it's pretty cool, and that was what John essentially built, was this whole dynamic SQL building code here that will run off of those queries.
That's a good question.
Yes.
So, I had understood that, so you're writing the nuts and bolts API itself. So what I've been told is that what we are going to do with the APIs that we've been assigned, rather than write a brand new one, we just go in and edit it for the new ways that we're gonna be using.
Yeah.
Do
So yeah, essentially like, I know like classes, this API here as well is the one that like Bill himself worked on with James, and they kind of built essentially like the foundation pattern for the node code for these APIs. And so those are really good to look in and just kind of look through and
classes?
try and study and understand classes. I know I have no idea about really any of those other ones, but I know they were working on classes. I kind of helped in classes a little bit when I was first learning.
So say your question one more time, Daniel.
And so essentially, to answer that question is like, yeah, like that's basically the pattern right here for doing that. Depending on whatever API you would build, you can just kind of follow these and see, okay, well that's how that get happens, that's how you get to the sub-resource, that's how the sub-resource does its job.
So it'll be more of an adjustment rather than writing a brand new one.
Yeah. Take it as like, these are,
Yeah, so
Templates.
we're writing brand new APIs, but at the same time we're also writing brand new services and structure
Yeah, we're-
architecture underneath.
This
And
is,
so-
yeah.
Right now, they're linking the new code to the old architecture. Eventually, we have to go in and change this and update it to work with the new architecture.
That's right.
yeah.
As we get to the point where we're writing new code, and it'll just go right to the new architecture as well.
Yeah.
So essentially, this node code takes an API request and identifies essentially the SQL or builds the SQL needed to get that information from the relational database and return it. And like Doug was saying before, we're eventually going to be moving to a NoSQL type of environment, DynamoDB, all of that stuff. And so this is just kind of a step in the migration towards that process. This is like, we have the Swagger that's built, and shrink that down so you see like the endpoints in the Swagger and all that. This will stay identical through that process. So this is kind of, okay, here's what the developers, user end developers can use to develop their, websites and whatnot. And then that will stay the same. They can build off of that and it will work for them no matter what. As for now, it'll be going through this API of picking that information from the relational database, but then just on our end later on when we have all of the other DynamoDB and event-driven everything
Yeah.
working, we're just gonna, the Swagger and the API stays the same, but the backend code will
Yeah,
be
let
swapped
me, I'll go to the board. You wanna film this? So, we talked yesterday, and we talked about that we're gonna have, our request will come, it'll first come to WSO2. Did we talk about this yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then, it's gonna go to the Amazon Web Services, API gateway, right? And then that goes to the web service, right? And that's eventually how we're gonna make this stuff work.
Mhm.
Now what's really cool is this connection will stay there, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna change this, what's behind it, and we'll have the main Swagger document that governs this, but what we'll do is inside it, what we'll do is that main thing will come down here and we'll have this gather and the SNS stuff, right? And we'll have our cachers and who knows what else, okay? And so that's the thing is right now we're at the point where we don't have this implemented for persons yet or any of these other APIs. It may be that when we get to it, we're gonna do CES shared admissions first. When we get to it, then we'll change this to match this architecture. Is that right, Doug?
Yeah, version 2 of YAM.
Yeah,
But the contract up won't have to change.
that's right. That's what I'm trying to explain is the Swagger governs this whole thing. It won't change, but all this stuff beneath it will. And what's great is these diagrams that we've been looking at for CES shared admissions, that all can happen behind that. And so we abstract that whole thing away by this architecture, and then we can plug new things in or adjust what's there.
So I'm understanding correctly, essentially all that stuff would be the version 2. This right here is like the version 1.
Right.
all the node code that goes to the uses SQL and goes to the relational database.
And we probably won't be messing with, persons or YAM for a while, because we're gonna do CS shared admissions first, right?
We're gonna assume your stuff. I mean, I'm gonna draw it over here as a domain, you know, so I haven't drawn that yet. I'm going and getting that identity stuff. I'm gonna use your stuff as is. I mean, there's opportunity for improvement, but it's great version 1. It works. Let's just stay there. That's what we want to do.
So Dan, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But in general, like, this is all node code right here, which will still be writing in the lambdas and stuff. And so, if you want to just look at other node code and try and study and understand it, you can look at these. And
So basically, we will be doing, it'll be the same but changed so that it can access the DynamoDB, so it will be NoSQL, right?
Yeah.
There may be parts of it that,
Yeah,
and
it'll
there's
be-
still maybe parts that are still relational. I mean, all those are possibilities.
it's like if you go to, say, like addresses, the sub-resource, you can look, here's the index, so that get in the person's index, if you go and get an address, it'll redirect it to this address's index get. And here you go in and checks to make sure the query is a valid query, and then it gets all the SQL from this separate file, which just stores all of the SQL code in order to get the information they want.
Let me give you an example of where we'll take and we may go with this. Okay. So we're doing a great version 1. No problem with that. All makes sense. Well, let's suppose, okay, I'm on this screen right now. And I want to look up a person. How does it look right now? You guys have seen this before. What do?
Type in that little search box.
I get a little search box here and I type in Keel, Daniel, go. Right? Goes out, hits your API, and puts in some query parameters, and it comes back with a set of 100 possible hits, and it displays it here on the screen with enough information that they go down and they look at it. Right? Does that make perfect sense? All right, let me give you another example. I want to look up classes. I want to look up all math classes that teach algebra. Can you do that?
I don't know. I've never done that.
Come on, you guys have registered before. Can you do that?
Well, not teach algebra, like algebra courses that are called algebra, or, you know, the course number.
If you know the course number, the only choice you get here is math, 110, and I can see what they got, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't go in here and type algebra. I can't go in here and type, I'm looking for Daniels in Springville. We don't have that capability, do we? Wouldn't it be really cool if I could have what they call kind of Elasticsearch thing, and what it is up here, and it's got this box, and I start typing. I type in D-A-N, and this thing is going and changing and showing all the Daniels, or Danielsons, or whatever on the school, and then I put a space, and then I put in Springville, and now it's restricted it down to all the Dans in Springville, and then I put in, you can even get this crazy. Where'd you serve your mission, Daniel? Guatemala. And boom, there it is. Dan in Springville that served his mission in Guatemala, because we know that about the person. Wouldn't that be a cool search capability? Well, guess what? The industry's starting to produce it. It's called Elasticsearch.
I think Spidey Dan already did that for his high school.
Okay. Well, yeah, we could make this more sophisticated up here. We could say, well, I'll let you put in some other parameters, and the API will do that. But that's not an Elasticsearch. Have you ever seen an application that does Elasticsearch? They're really cool, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And if I was going to come in and look people up, because this is kind of a cool thing, what if I put in my Elasticsearch engine all of the kinds of things that people might want to look up, and it could literally look like that, and it says, I'm matching this because I've got all the Dans. Oh, in Springville, okay, I'm looking through his hometowns or whatever. Currently living there in Springville. Oh, in Guatemala, I know his mission. Okay, here's guys who've served in the Guatemalan mission. And there it is. Boom. That's the guy I'm looking for. I don't even know his last name.
So Google
It's just
search.
this guy I met in Dan, and I know he lives in Springville, and he's in my class. It's like I can even get down and see. And he said he served a mission in Guatemala. And we've got Elasticsearch. Okay,
So
says
Google search is an example of that, right?
Yeah, Google
Yeah.
does that, doesn't it?
yeah, the new Google ones, yeah, have pretty cool like that. So over here, right now, I've got this web service, and it's working through an API and going to a relational database. Could I enable that? Not really. Not very slick. But what if at this particular point the web service was dealing with something, and over here, the reason I built this is because any changes, over here I've got my relational database for now. You can think about it. But over here I've got an Elasticsearch engine. That's what they call it, Elasticsearch engine. And what if I changed it to this technology so that anytime an update was going to the relational database, it also picked that thing up and it updated my Elasticsearch engine. Nothing has to change here. Just do your updates through the API. But I'm picking it up and putting the Elasticsearch engine, and then I could have an application that was smart enough to work with that.
So it would listen to the SNS then, is that?
Yeah, just listen. Just put another thing there. Listen to the SF topic. Your job: update the Elasticsearch engine anytime there's an update in here. API doesn't need to change. API is doing it. It's doing the messages. It's doing to the relational database. Like right now, we have it so tightly tied. There's no message going in there. So how do I get in there and do that? Kind of a pain. But if I went back and removed this, even if I left the relational database, I just said, hey, send messages, take and interpret the messages to update the database. Oh, that means I could also put this guy on here and maintain an Elasticsearch engine, or 2 or 3 or different, and an analytical one. I could do all kinds of things, and then I could get this right here. Nothing out here changed, but I can all kinds of new capabilities. That's why we're going to have a version 2 again. We're going to go to a model that looks like that. So was anything wrong? No. We'll probably just take your code and break it apart and say, I've got this thing here and it generates messages, and now we'll take your database code and we'll put it in here and we'll do a relational database. Well, do I have to change? Can I use a relational database in this model instead of a NoSQL database? Sure. There's advantages and strengths of each one. Maybe I will eventually change to a NoSQL database. Maybe I won't. But I do definitely want to go to this kind of a model where we're generating messages so that I can put more clients on here. I can take advantage and I can start putting in capabilities and features. Would that be fun to work on next?
That would be cool.
That would be cool. My prediction, the identity things, you come back in a year or two and it'll be this really cool Elasticsearch engine there, and you can put in all kinds of things and get all kinds of interesting information. Oh, by the way, we might want to also pull in identity, because Elasticsearch, everybody says, dude, we really want classes in there. Because I know Daniel in my class, whatever. Oh, okay, so we're going to start listening to messages coming out of the registration system as well and slap it in there. And then you could search for Daniels in my CS class who wear red shirts. No, I don't think we can do that.
That's technology.
Just like scans each person as they walk.
That's why we want to go to the architecture we're going to. Make sense? All right. So keep going. Get this all working. We're going to take advantage of it, but then we're just going to start extending. There's no throwaway code.
Oh, that's all I really have to share.
Great. Who's got something else? David, did you want to go through your stuff?
Who's already reported?
So we started with Dan,
Oh, he took all the time. He took the force banana. Okay.
and Trevor's kind
Just
of.
that interesting.
Trevor,
Yes.
do you have anything new that you want to talk about?
No, I shared my stuff yesterday, and now I'm just barely starting to learn how to do it with scripting.
Oh, cool.
All right, but we're going to do one thing. Pull up and show everybody the diagram of the domain you're working in.
Good. Can I use yours? I don't have a.
Oh, my computer.
Oh, you don't have a HDMI on yours.
No. And I was gonna go, the CSRs weren't there, but it looked like he had a bunch of Thunderbolts to something, so I didn't want to just.
Is that what
send
you
it
need to
his
see? Is that
office.
there? Or?
Yeah. Mine we decided was the IB one, right? Or APIB?
Yes.
For
The-
Right here.
Advanced placement and international baccalaureate stuff. So click on the top.
Open with, how come it doesn't say draw IO?
What?
Go up to the top.
You should be able to click on the open with,
Sure.
do the pull down and tell it to use draw IO. There you go.
Nice.
There you go, get it up in there.
Authorize. Allow.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask him. Okay, so this is mine that I'm working on. So basically, what I'm trying to simulate is creating the message bus